Welcome back to Round 5 commentary for the OC Hive Mind with your boy Sparky. I'm here with my boy Victor. Say hi, Victor.
Hi, Victor.
Today we have what could be relatively close to classic matchup of Energy versus Gruul Eldrazi. We got Jackson on some Jeskai-ish, using some Mockingbirds and Ranger Captain of Eos, along with Consign a Memory in his sideboard. What side of this matchup do you think is more favorited, Victor?
I think if you're talking game one,
Yeah.
I think that Eldrazi is favored. I think it just goes. I mean, listen, Energy can certainly have a quick start where if Dan stumbles for any reason or just does ramp stuff, it might not matter. Where you're going like turn 4 or maybe even earlier, Myco Spawn into Myco Spawn kind of deal where that might just not be enough. But I think that Eldrazi is so fast now as far as using mana and getting stuff on the board that I don't know if Jackson has enough to overwhelm him fast enough. So game one, I'll say Eldrazi, but then the sideboard, those consigns might be the perfect tool to take over the game.
I mean, we're looking at Jackson's hand here, and he's got 2 lands, Ocelot Pride, Ragavan, Mockingjay, nope. He decides to pitch the Flage and keep 3 lands. So if he leads on a Ragavan here, I think we might see some fireworks.
So be interested to see if Jackson decides. Ocelot Pride. Be interested to see if Jackson decides to deploy the Mockingbird quickly. It's because you've got the Pride out, but we'll see what kind of happens here.
I don't want to cut you off, but you want to talk about deploy quickly, brother.
That was something.
That's a lot of mana. This is turn 2, my guy. And he's sitting on 5 mana? And if he takes the Eldrazi Temple, he's sitting on 7 mana. Wow.
I mean, I'm sure someone who's much better at deck building will figure it out. But the idea that the Eldrazi and the Tron decks get this new Ugin into their tools is just insane to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. This new card coming from Dragons of Tarkir, do you happen to have the card up?
The Ugin? I can.
Yeah, can you pull that up?
I'd be more than happy to.
While you're doing that, I got a dashed Ragavan from Jackson. And it seems with the amount of mana that Dan has, I think he's just going to chump block.
Yeah, I can't imagine that the spawn's going to do something for him so important next turn that he can't just let it go.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the question here is, do you want Jackson to get the treasure token and a card from your deck, or do you want him to get a cat? And I think the cat is the lesser of the 2 evils there.
Yeah, especially with if Dan has, returns in the deck. Or he just has, something like Writhing Crystals here. It doesn't really matter about your 1/1 cat. I have that
good blocker
pulled up when you're ready.
Yes, so tell me about this Ugin.
All right, so Ugin, Eye of the Storms. It is a 7 generic cost Planeswalker. When you cast this spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. So
Devour of Death, right?
Devour, or if you remember Karn Liberated, the minus.
Yes.
Though I think Karn Liberated was any permanent, but still close enough.
Mm-hmm.
Cast a colorless spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. So that's an insane static ability right there.
Yeah.
+2, you gain 3 life and draw a card.
Wow.
0, 3 colorless.
Okay.
-11, search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile them, then shuffle. Until end of your turn, you may cast those cards without paying their mana cost, and it starts at 7 loyalty, so 2 turns after your ulting. Sorry, it'll be on the 3rd turn.
Yeah, so you plus it on the turn it comes in, you plus it on the 2nd turn, and the 3rd turn you can minus the 11.
Yeah.
Ooh, mana denial plan over here.
Worldbreaker is such a good card against Energy, especially just.
It's so big.
I don't believe Jackson has many static prisons in the deck. So
I would assume two, like most the Boros Energy decks are running two now. But I also would assume, you know, being Jeskai Energy, putting some of these blue cards in the deck, you're probably cutting some of those.
so talking about the Ugin, I mean, okay, take this board for example. Now, granted, to do Ugin on turn 3, you have to be either. I guess you could still play this mana base and this style deck. It's just a little bit harder sometimes to get a turn 3/7, unlike Tron. But say Dan's playing the Tron variation. On that turn, depending on what his hand was, he could have picked off the Ocelot Pride and the Ragavan all in the same turn just by casting spells. Because if you have a
A
Kozilek's
cu-
command,
yeah.
you can zero and then just do it for one, pick off the Ragavan, and do whatever other second effect you want. And the Ugin already exiled the Ocelot Pride from its cast effect. So,
There had to have been a conversation, I guess, at WotC about like, do we make this 7 mana with like, the fact that Modern has access to the Urza lands?
I mean, I
Because
would have thought that this card should have been 8, but maybe they saw
yeah,
something or felt something differently
I
about.
believe most of the other Ugins were 8 or 6, right?
There's an 8 and there's a 6.
Yeah. I thought I kind of always had it in my head that like the 7, like the odd evil Nicol Bolas was odd mana, and that like Ugin was even mana, but then there was the 4 mana Nicol Bolas. That was a creature. So mana denial plan's going pretty good here for Daniel. But back
Yeah,
to what
I
I was
mean,
saying, I 7 mana is obscene for this kind of planeswalker, especially in the format we're playing. In standard, I think like it's fair. I don't think they're gonna get to that quickly. I do think maybe the dead format of Pioneer in the mono green ramp deck, that could be another card they can play. But
yeah, I mean, Tribal Ugin is certainly at this point. I mean, you got Ugin's Lab. You wouldn't actually play the other one, but the 6 mana one, maybe you could though. But I do think that this Ugin is certainly going to make this. Now, I mean, maybe there's a world where they ban Malevolent Rumble, and then you just clearly shift into that instead of Emrakul being your top end, which
the
would be
banning the banning of Malevolent Rumble I see is so far down the line. I think there's too many more egregious cards that you hit. I feel like having a green ponder, which is what a lot of people, especially when they were playing Nadu, were calling Malevolent Rumble. Um, I think the card is just decent on rate. If you build your deck correctly with permanent spells, you're gonna hit a lot of your good cards. You get 4 cards to select from, and then like good deck building. Oh, cards are going to my graveyard. Why not build around Delirium? And that you have this whole like fun Emrakul strategy going on top of all your other Eldrazi stuff.
I will say
Over,
this.
go ahead.
Um, as someone who started with Tron into Modern, um, that that was actually the first deck that I was able to build. Now, granted, it was mono green, and it was playing Karn Liberateds and Ugins, which I luckily had from playing Standard. Um, I don't know if I'm exactly thrilled with having the card around, just because it'll be interesting to see if aggro has enough tools at this point to keep up with that kind of style of deck where everything's got so much. I mean, looking at Jackson here, as soon as the first mana denial of the Worldbreaker came through, it was like almost the beginning of the end. Now, luckily, Jackson's got these Ocelot Prides keeping these creatures in check, and depending on how aggressive Dan gets, which interesting to see him not want to. Well, I guess if you swing with something. Maybe just Jackson just eats it with all the cats, but
It's a little weird from Dan because he could be like using one of his creatures as like an abyss of making like Jackson sacrifice at least something for the turn.
here we go. Got a little Ranger Captain action. I'm just surprised like he doesn't just swing with the World Breaker because okay, so if the World Breaker gets blocked by all the cats, then it eats it up, and then he can just simply sack the Worldbreaker back to hand.
Yeah.
Or if it just takes it eats one creature, it still eats a creature every turn.
Looking at the life totals, there very well could be a position, especially with 2 Ocelot Prides in play and already having the City's Blessing. There could be a position where Jackson can just overrun the 5 creatures that are in play for Dan, right? Like if
Yeah, I see what
If
you're because
Jackson Alpha strikes, if he gets a lot of because if he's able to gain life on his next turn, right, with the guide, he can gain another. I think it's 6 cats. Oh my god.
Oh,
Okay. So this
wow.
is disgusting. So he's gonna go to 15 immediately,
14.
or to 14. Okay, yeah.
I mean, either
And then
it's still gaining life.
And then his end step, he's gonna gain 12 energy, 12 life, and he's gonna get 6 cats. Or he's not gonna get 6 cats.
Oof, and I think Dan drew another Utopia Sprawl, and he's got all lands.
He's sitting on 3 lands. Yeah. So this is an interesting scenario where like Jackson has to think of what it is. What does he lose to? Right? He's dead. He's dead no matter what to Kozilek's return because it cleans up the board. Like the only thing that survives is the Ranger Captain. If Dan is just sandbagging a Kozilek's command, I don't know how good that is for Dan because he would have cast it the previous turn.
Yes, I also gained.
And then like maybe he's sandbagging it as like a big block here. Like I guess that's something Jackson could play around, maybe. But I also don't think you beat that card in the aggregate with how much mana Dan has. Because he would just dig to the Emrakul, play the Emrakul, win the game.
Great. This is terrible.
Wait, so if he's got 6, 12, he's got 15.
15 cats. Dan's at 13. Those 15 cats cover his life total. He has a Ragavan, a Ranger, 2 Guides, and 2 Ocelot Prides. One of those normal creatures that's actual cardboard gets through, plus the 15. So worst case scenario, it's 16 damage coming at Dan if Dan blocks everything. And here's a good tell from me. Dan is going to his sideboard to decide if he wants to bring in cards right now. Like Dan has like left the match, gone to his sideboard, is making decisions, and then gonna choose something. This is an interesting attack.
I guess he's going to just use the. I guess it's 2 creatures because of the Goddess Souls, but then.
This is weird here because whatever gets pumped by the Goddess Souls are just going to get blocked by the Worldbreaker, and the other thing is just going to get blocked by one of the Mega Spawns, and the attack doesn't matter. And now we're short dudes to have lethal.
6 of the cats. For nothing. This is terrible. I'm not attacking. I'm passing.
I think that's smart.
Go.
Let's see what. Okay. So my opponent just did not play command on my end step, right?
Yeah. That should be a tell here for Jackson.
That's a tell. If he just shipped
there's no
back,
return. There's no return, and there's no command because there's no reason to
if
leave
he just
all that
shipped
mana
back, I'm cracking everything in.
Great. Good.
We're bringing the beats.
I guess Jackson does not want to do that.
I don't think. Yeah, I think he's thinking that Dan's trying to next level him. That's the red source. Okay.
Which now means he's cut off of red for at least a turn because he only has an arena. Oh, the Marsh Flats might be able to still grab another Sacred Foundry, but still, it does just mean that awkwardly your land
is that. I think he drew a bombardment. Oh no!
Well, maybe he doesn't have the red source anymore.
If he played the arena last turn, he would have had 2 red sources, and he would have been able to play the bombardment and win on the spot. Fudge.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what Jackson was doing by not playing the land.
Okay.
I think he was just sandbagging extra cards in hand. People have been known to do that. When your opponent counts Delirium, things aren't good.
Trying to get creative. Okay.
Nice card.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Does Dan have enough to? Oh well, I understand wanting to get that card, but
Okay. So
Jeskai.
Dan has a Sanctum of Ugin in play, right? So
Yeah,
Sanctum of Ugin requires you to cast CMC 7 or more colorless creature. If he has
I believe
Cityscape
Sanctum is
Leveler,
actually a spell. I mean, not that I mean it's
oh
gonna
yeah,
be.
you're right. But I think the only I believe most of the big like spells in their sideboard is Cityscape Leveler. If he has enough mana, he might be able to get Cityscape Leveler, trigger the Sanctum, get Emrakul, and take his opponent's turn.
I'm trying to count his mana because what? So Emrakul costs at that point 7.
Yes. So he pulled the 3 temples aside, and he has a Scion. That's 7. So he puts himself to 12, uses the 8 mana. That's not
Yeah,
those
he's got it
temples.
all. Yeah, he has enough. Wow.
Trigger.
And that's game because Emrakul is going to take Jackson's turn. He's got
And he's got the bombardment. He just like
yeah.
attacks, and he can shoot himself with everything.
Alright, I'll die. Okay. To my
Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't exactly dead to his bombardment, but he was dead to he has no board, and there's an Emrakul on the table.
You have 15 tokens. And like 5 other attackers.
This is Dan letting him know that he didn't have it.
What are you doing? I don't know, man. Neither do I.
Yeah.
I don't think I was winning.
Yeah. We'll see if that comes back to bite him. I mean, like, 1 or 2. So I agree with being cautious the first turn. When your opponent plays land, ships it back to you again, I think you have to attack. And then there's a possibility where he could have not had to sandbag the arena.
Exactly enough mana to get Emrakul.
If he,
I guess
if he
the only
doesn't
thing
get-
I think of is if
Yeah.
you're putting your opponent on command or return anyway. I mean, if you go don't swing go and they have it,
they still blow you out.
They still blow you out. So at that point, I'm thinking, all right, I might as well get some value out of attacking.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just 1 mana cost, yes.
I'm actually gonna start screaming at everyone here.
Dan's mad. He's like, I was dead. How did I live? So it looks like
What else am I doing? This is just from the RC.
it looked like Dan cut 2 Karns, and I think he's bringing in an Engineered Explosives and the other Kozilek's Return.
Definitely not those.
Okay, yeah, for the trade off.
Yeah, and then Jackson, I see boarded in a some number of Fabled the Mirror Breaker, and then also Surgical Extraction, which I think is fine, because if for some reason Emrakul goes to the yard early, you can get rid of it. Yeah, 4 consigns, Surgical, and something else. The problem here is you don't want to take out any of your aggressive threats. Any 1-drop needs to stay in your deck because you need to be aggressive in this matchup. This is probably the only time where I favor regular Boros Energy, because the adoption of Molten Rain over what was it, Obsidian Charmaw?
Mm-hmm.
Like Molten Rain on 3, so that like always your Stone Rain effect is always 3, and it does them 2 damage, is amazing against them, because it can hit the land with the Utopia Sprawl. It won't do the 2 damage, but that's fine. You can hit their forest, take away their colored sources. You can hit any of the other lands that could be a problem, right? I just think it's one of the really good cards. It looks like he's taking out Ranger Captains and some other white cards.
Yeah, the slower 3 drops.
Yeah. I like Thraben Charm because that's one of the ways it's like a Doomblade in your deck. So Jackson will be on the play here. Hands I'd be looking to keep. Guide Pride. Awesome hand. Anything with Ragavan, relatively speaking, as long as you have other threats and cards to play. Like Ragavan into turn 2 Fable, I think is pretty good.
Yeah, that would be a
Um,
strong start.
Extra K with
Very
that.
strong start.
I could get with that. Do you think you take out Mockingbird against
I think
Eldrazi?
Mockingbird gets dropped. I don't think.
Or more copies.
I think the likelihood that like they're bringing in so many other like mass removal effects. I don't think Mockingbird's as good, especially when you're taking out the Ranger captains as a way to find it.
Count the graveyard. Oh, yeah.
I think you just try and make yourself as Boros energy as possible, along with the consigns. Like consign should be your only blue spell, because you
Yeah,
don't want to
'cause-
spend mana on a bird and then not have the blue mana for the consign.
That hand sucks.
That's at least what I'm thinking.
And I didn't get a great look at Jackson's hand, but he immediately shipped it back, so it was probably land heavy.
Yeah, I'm assuming anything like that is probably like 4, and I honestly don't even want to see 3. I think it's all gas, no brakes is what you're going for.
If there was
That makes sense.
if there was a rag in my hand last hand, I probably would have kept that with 5 lands. But like,
Good commentary from Jackson.
I don't know.
5 lands, Ragavan is actually a keeper. I think that's debatable, but
Stop with that.
being aggressive is important. But we're going to 6.
That was no land.
Oh,
I'm dead.
This has got to be one great 5.
as Ralph Wiggum once said, I'm in danger.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely
It
not
is-
My favorite number.
what you want to be doing against Eldrazi, especially when you need like your critical mass of cards.
I do think there is like a winning 5 somewhere in that deck. I don't know what it looks like. Though I do think it starts with like Ragavan, land, consign to memory, and then like
Yeah.
a Johnny?
You'd never see.
Maybe? I don't know.
Terragast Void.
I think it's just colorless. It has a merge for.
The merge is red.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it needs the voice.
Yeah, it'd be like Ragavan
I
consign.
think they should give it to him.
Yeah, I think it already has.
Ooh.
Okay, there's a bombardment.
Yes.
I don't think we want that Flage. I think Flage is too much right now.
Hollow Fountain.
The Trumble. That would be significantly better.
It looks like 2 lands, Guide, Bombardment, Mockingbird. Which I don't think is that bad.
Sorta.
No, I mean, I guess it depends on if Jackson's going to deploy this Mockingbird turn 2
And play a guide and pass.
just to get double guide start.
That's fine.
3rd land's not bad.
1U.
15.
Go to 14 for a Hollow Fountain. Play a Bombardment.
Yeah, bombardment.
Go ahead.
Okay, so he's
I-
dealing with the more mana efficient curve.
I understand the mana efficient curve, right?
Trumble.
Fully get it. My issue with it is, you're not applying enough pressure.
Yeah,
And
I mean, if
the
he draws a Johnny, it's not a bad call, but
No, of course. A Johnny obviously is the Wombo combo.
yeah, I do agree. It is the slower.
Nice.
I think I saw what card he drew, and in the face of that Engineered Explosives is not good. He drew another Guide of Souls, so he has mono 1-drops in his hand right now.
Name Eldrazi.
Oof.
Yeah.
Talisman of Impulse.
Okay.
Talisman of Impulse.
Okay.
All right.
Talisman of Impulse. Okay.
Galvanic blast you.
You got.
Yeah.
Galvanic blast you.
If you notice, he's got 3 in play and 1 in his graveyard.
On my next turn.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Join
That's
the annals of history.
it's a lot of mana ramping he did.
PP finalist Beepin. I'm not gonna try to pronounce his last name.
Okay, so Micah spawns online for next turn. Really big commands are online. I'm surprised there was no
Your Eldrazi spells, but that's not the part that matters.
like EE. I guess he wants to play it and be able to crack it at the same time.
Yeah, I don't think you open yourself up to
I didn't want
any
that.
sort of sideboard removal.
I would have liked to see Jackson play the Mockingbird at least maybe entice Dan in putting it on 1 and not 2.
I mean, he's definitely not gonna put on 2 anymore. There are 3 talismans and play to 1 bombardment.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Out of the deck.
Yeah.
World Breaker's solid. I actually like World Breaker over Devourer because the bigger butt makes it a little bit more enticing.
It also just hits more relevant things, like the creatures you don't care about. You want to get rid of
The
lands,
enchantments. Yeah.
the enchantments.
I think that's about it. And then I mean, of course, like we're just gonna keep ramping. Why not?
Yeah, we're here already.
Heck yeah, brother!
16. Second spawn.
Tree mana.
Okay.
Oh, duh! It was an Eldrazi mana.
You have a bagillion mana.
Yeah.
We got it.
Yeah,
One.
he. That's a lot of searching and a lot of mana.
And thank you, Logan.
The
I'm gonna go out on a
dagger.
limb because I don't recognize the art, but those are green red talismans, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, does that look like? That looks like a guitar. It's the Doctor Who one. Okay.
Yep.
Did not know there was a guitar in Doctor Who that mattered, but then again, I never watched Doctor Who.
Me neither. But you know, to each their own. I'm not gonna knock a
Absolutely.
fandom.
Listen, it's a historic series, and I know
David
there's a lot of
Tennant's pretty
fans out
cool.
there.
I heard he was one of the doctors. He seems pretty cool.
It wasn't Matt Smith also a
Yes, he was.
so
I believe Matt Smith was a popular one, and so was Tennant.
Guide. Yep. You're 13.
Ooh.
Um,
Ooh, I think I have an idea what happens here.
dash.
I think we're
Okay.
just gonna. I think we're trying to get in.
Come in. Yeah. Hey.
Get in while the getting's good.
Yeah, you got no other choice. Oh, that was a good one to hit. Ragavan
That's
is really good at hitting the
That's
cards.
a bingo, baby. That's a
deal with it.
bingo.
Dash. Go.
It's unfortunate that all that energy got used, but do you think at this point he's going to deploy the EE?
Oh yeah, you certainly put it in play. I mean, I would think, well, unless Dan has something so over the top that it doesn't even matter. But
World Breaker. Cash triggers. Target.
Well,
Resolve this.
I think we just found like another world breaker.
Can't always have it, fortunately. Also drew a lot of lands.
well, he passed over Emrakul, so it's not that. Oh no, okay.
Gonna find the Emrakul.
Gonna do the Emrakul.
I guess that's fair. I just think like again, the world breakers are like the lockdown pieces, the terror twins, if you will, for our wrestling fans.
Foggy, you got me.
Ugh.
Another bug.
E on one. Sure.
Well, he's got and I mean now he's got it locked, right? Because the guides can never make the Ragavan big enough in a meaningful way, unless what you have to go. No, you don't even. Oh wait, hold on. If you go Mockingbird, make a guide, get 2 energy, and then play Ragavan, you have. No, you only have 5, so you can't even double pump, and I don't think a double pump makes it big enough. Oh, but he does have Galvanic Discharge.
I don't think this like there's 2 talismans untapped. Like if he plays all the cards in his hand,
Oh yeah, there's still an E. Never mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is all bad.
he's just dead.
Kill that.
Never mind. Forgot all about the E.
Yeah.
Like none of those.
And something you shouldn't forget about is the Emrakul that's definitely coming down next turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just needs to discount it by 3.
Give you the least amount of things to do. Play this Mockingbird for 4.
Okay.
We'll make a 3/3.
Yeah. You don't
We
get
did
a
it.
cash trigger.
Well, I guess that's one way to like not completely get blown out to it.
copy on the end step. That's step 4/4. Or 4 mana. Sorry.
I won't lie. I do always tend to forget that Mockingbird is the amount of mana, not
Yes.
the colors like prismatic.
Yeah.
Well,
Would you like to do anything else?
The promised end has arrived.
Okay.
Will that spell the end of Jackson?
Who's alive?
You got me.
maybe Jackson secretly has Supreme Verdicts in his deck.
Would you like me to lose another 2?
No.
Okay.
No, I think this is always correct. I think you always correctly fail to find.
Mhm.
Woof.
Yeah. No cards in hand. No permanents on the battlefield besides lands.
This is for
And no Supreme Verdicts.
Show me potato salad.
You die.
Oh boy.
Sometimes that's just how it gets drawn up, baby. And it's unfortunate sometimes, but, you know, that's why we play the games. A well-timed consign would have been good for him
My first 10 was
in a
good.
few points,
I
but
still think there should be a game 3. But
I'm
Yeah,
with Dan.
I
here.
mean,
I think there was obviously something missed in game 1. And I think if Jackson's on the play twice, he might be able to get
I was dead.
something done.
You can check.
Unstable.
No,
Okay,
3 fetches.
surgical. Response, yeah.
Any interesting points at the end of this match here?
I mean, it's
Victor?
good to, like, play around. It's
Um,
but also just like
I'd love to see the next time Jackson hits against the Eldrazi matchup. I'd love to talk to him about maybe cutting the Mockingbird and seeing what that looks like, because I felt like that was a eventual dead card because of what we talked about. That there's just so many mass removal ways to deal with the card that it just felt like it ended up being a dead card. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that was something else, what would that have looked like for Jackson? But I think it kind of played out exactly how we were talking about. You either are fast enough where you overwhelm your Eldrazi opponent, or you're not fast enough, and eventually the inevitability comes around.
Yeah, and I mean, like, at the end of the day, I do think both of these decks are good decks to want to be playing post the banning that's going to be happening in just a couple days now. So we'll be back after the banning, or we'll give you some kind of updates on what we think is good. As of right now, what would you want to be playing?
So assuming that it's going to be a breach ban, Eldrazi seems pretty good, or the new list playing Kaito. Kaito
Okay.
seems like a really strong card.
Kaito
Right?
blue black frog decks.
The Bane of Shadows. Yep,
Yeah,
those
okay.
seem like that just seems like a really good 4-drop right now in this format.
For me, my choices would be black, white, mid-range, or possibly some version of energy. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that bell. And if you'd like to support us, you could find us at our Bonfire store.
And a huge thank you to our sponsors, Nova Games and Brick, for hosting us for FNM. And please make sure to use our Mana Traders coupon code OCHM at sign-up for 25% off your third month.
I've been Sparky. Say goodbye, Victor.
Goodbye, Victor.